Good morning. There is a lot going on in the church right now. A lot of things that we're inviting you guys into to be a part of, so that you can grow and you can be 514. Another thing that we want to invite you to is something we've been talking about. We do it several times a year, and it's called the Blueprint. I've had just the opportunity to build, I think, 2 houses. I didn't actually build them. No surprise, but where you pick up a piece of ground and then there's spec homes or track homes. You pick the parts and which floor plan you want and the flooring and the tile and all that stuff. And I've got to do that twice. And when we've done that, it's a serious process. And we're not even like designing. I've been a part of designing a building from nothing to something, and that process is wild. But even if you just build a house and it's in a neighborhood that has 10 different models that are available for you to build, that is a serious process. I mean, you go to the office to meet with the people like 12 times and pick out all types of things, and you go drive around and pick out your lot, and you think thoroughly through what you're gonna see when you look out the back door and what the front door is gonna be like. You think about which way it's gonna be facing, with the sun, and what's gonna happen throughout the seasons. And I mean, all types of things that you just go through, and you think about where the water spigots are gonna be, because where you want the hose to be. I mean, the amount of things that you think through, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's serious business. And then at some point, you think about where the light switches are gonna be. I remember, has anyone ever done this too? Like where you do this, right? Like, and you pick where the light switches are. And at the time, you're walking through. I remember the guy's like, well, you can put a light switch here and then it'll turn on that light over there. But there's also one over there. And I'm like, well, why do we need both? And he's like, oh, some people just don't want to walk all the way over there to turn the light on. And I'm like, those people are lazy. I mean, that's what I thought. And then we did it. And I was like, well, that was stupid. I should have put a light switch right here. I don't want to walk over there and turn on the light. I just want to walk by and flip on the light and walk into a lit up room. Like things that you don't think about. But the amount of things that you think through is huge. And it's where you live. And the Blueprint is the serious business of where you're headed in your spiritual life, and really your whole life, not just your home, because your spiritual life will impact how you pick a house and where you're gonna live and what you're gonna do with your life and all that stuff. So it's even bigger. It's everything. Where are you gonna be in 5 years? What is your life gonna look like in 5 years? Is it going to be dramatically transformed by Christ because you've decided to be a disciple of Jesus? And so you are literally seeing the progress of change in your life that happens when you follow Christ and the Spirit of the living God lives in you. Like, that is what, as Christians, we should be thinking about. Where am I gonna be in 5 years? What am I gonna look like? What's it gonna be? So if you don't have a plan for that, you probably won't go there. It probably won't happen. And imagine, those types of things. Imagine if you were building your actual literal house and you never went to one of the meetings to plan everything. Imagine, if someone came to me and said, we're building our house, or if a husband and wife were sitting with me and they were having a conflict because she's like, we need to go, we gotta pick it all out. And the husband was like, we don't need to go to any of that, just let them do it, they'll do it. Like, that's a serious, you'd be like, what, dude, like, how are you thinking? This is gonna be a disaster for multiple reasons here. You need to get serious about the plan for your house. You need to get serious about the plan for your faith. Like, you have to take it seriously. And the Blueprint is where we lay out for you the model of following Christ and how that happens in this church. So if you really want to be a disciple of Christ and you want that to be a massive part of who you are and change you, and you believe that it's necessary, then one meeting for 2 hours where we feed you and we have fun and we teach you like these pillars of what it starts to look like to grow. Man, if that's too much for you, I think you have a missed I think you've missed what God has for you in your life and what's most important. Your priorities are off. You know, you don't just go through life and then God throws, what you would like him to hopefully on the train, in the truck bed. You're driving by and God, will you just do this for me? Will you just you pray about it, but you don't steer towards it? You got to steer the car towards the direction that God has called you to. And that's being integral in the church, part of the church, knowing you're the church, knowing how we grow, knowing what this community is all about. So the blueprint is coming up on January 31st. It is our membership course. It's the beginning, it's the launch pad of growing your faith into this community and becoming interconnected. And it's critical. It's critical. If you haven't done it, even if you are a part of this church or you've been in this room or you attend or you watch online, you still need to go to the blueprint because you need to understand all that we do, the role you play, and how that works in community. It's important. So please take it seriously. At least take it as seriously as if you built a house. So we are in a series about humility, and I've gotten great feedback about this series. People wanting to talk about this, right? Wanting to, think it through, wanting to crack it open more because it's not necessarily the natural way you think of it. Humility is one of those things that we observe in the world, or we observe arrogance, and kind of in contrast, we go, oh, that's not humility, but we don't necessarily articulate it. We just experience it. It's like there's arrogance, and obviously we're thinking that person, could use some humility. Oftentimes when we think of humility, we think it's our job, to be the humility police, right? To walk around and tell everybody that they need to be more humble, right? Which is just, it's so funny. I mean, there's a place for that type of interaction where, you might have an open discussion between friends or whatever, but to walk around and just say that you're the one who is deeming people their humility badges or not, that's a wild sense of pride. And so we need to unpack what humility really is. So over the past 2 weeks, we've been unpacking what it really is. And what it really is it's an understanding that it's not just something that we have for a moment. It's not just a tool. It is an all life, fully encompassing reality that we become, that we actually are turning into people of humility, and that it's not just something that you start out as, but it's someone that you become. We are supposed to be transformed fully into the likeness of Christ. Right now, we see through a glass dimly. You remember the old Coke bottles? Raise your hand. Remember a Coke bottle? Remember how thick the bottom was? Right? That's kind of what Paul's getting at. It's like we can see the world and see God through the bottom of a Coke bottle. It's very blurry. We don't fully see it. We don't fully understand it. But he says we're moving towards that, and one day that will be removed, and we will see him face to face. And he says, and we will be like him. We'll be like him. So when we are like him, we'll be fully humble. So humility cannot just be for now, it's forever. It's who we're becoming. It's not just for infancy. It is our destiny that we become people of humility. So it's worth the time to look at it. And what leads us to humility is reality. The reality of the world, the reality of life, the things that God has laid out, the truth. So that's why the scriptures are so integral for your development as a human being, because what they do is they open up this portal into a world that's difficult for us to understand, which is the truth, the fullness, all of it. Having your eyes fully wide open, seeing the truth. It's a mirror, it's a window. It shows us what the truth is, who God is, who you are, how the world works, how it doesn't work. Everything from the way how we're supposed to handle our day-to-day, how we're supposed to handle our money, how we're supposed to handle our relationships. It gives us insight and direction to all of that, and it shows us that we are part of something that God created and that we have a place in that creation. And knowing that reality is what will start to shape you into a person who is humble. a person who understands that first and foremost, they're designed to live in submission to God, right? We were made to live in submission. And that's what we talked about for the first week. We're made to live in submission. We don't work right if we don't submit to God. Humans are designed with instructions to follow the instructions. God is the author of the instructions and the direction of our life. And when we say, okay, I'm gonna do it his way, then we are by default, that submission, it is humility. You might not just look at it and say, that's a humble person. You might see them doing all kinds of things and go, man, the way that person lives their life, the way that person talks to people, the way that person carries themselves, the way they listen to people. And you go, they have something about them that you might just say, it's humble. There's a humility there. And then you might look further and go, where did that come from? And it's everything that person is moving towards is in fellowship of Christ. They didn't want to listen to you. They've learned to listen to you. They've learned that you are an image of God and that that God wants you to be quick to listen and slow to speak. And that comes from what God says in the Bible. So we don't grow up thinking, I want to be quick to listen and slow to speak. We grow up thinking, I got a lot to say, everybody shut up. And so when somebody is a listener, you go, that person is humble, especially when they're not just quiet, they respond intentionally, and then they remember and they carry what they heard on with you the next time they see you, and they thought about it. Like they really listened. And you think to yourself, it's almost bizarre. It happens so infrequently. When you have a conversation with somebody that in the moment seems important, and then you leave, and then they come back and they tell you that they spent time thinking about the thing that you talked about. That's a humble person. I can't believe they spent real estate in their brain about me. It's humility. And they're doing all of that because in every way they're trying to surrender and submit themselves to God. And last week what we said is that humans are creatures of progress. That's the other reality, is that humans were made to grow. We're made to get better. We're made to figure things out. We're made to gain skill. We're made to gain knowledge. We're made to gain wisdom. We're made to do it better and get better. A couple great examples of this. I mean, I know the Packers lost last night, but since last Sunday, I think they won that game. Yeah, who did they beat? They beat the Cowboys, right? Didn't they beat the Cowboys? Didn't they smack the Cowboys? Yeah, America's team. They were bad at the beginning of the year, and they got a lot better. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes we have a fixed mindset about the whole thing. The Packers stink. Really? They got a lot better. You can grow. And so it's really a dangerous mentality to put people in categories. Good, bad, done growing, finished, right? And then people that are these people are just awesome. They're always great. They're always amazing. Look what happened last night, right? I mean, the 49ers literally almost got beat, right? So the Packers have really progressed in the last 6 games. People grow. We grow. We're made to grow. We're made to learn. We're made to fall down, get back up, and try it again. I mean, the scriptures talk about how a righteous person, and that doesn't mean a person who's justified before God, but a person who lives the way that humans were designed to live, a person who rightly lives, they fall down and they get back up. They get back up and they try again and they grow and they get better. The scriptures are covered with passages about the importance of understanding humility and understanding your need to grow and understanding how submission and progress all comes in your relationship to God. There's a passage that says, humble yourself in the sight of the Lord and he will lift you up. There's a path in due time. Amen. God says this, that he will give grace to the humble. Now listen to this for a second. So what we don't do is we hear me say that God gives grace to the humble, but opposes the proud. And we go, yeah, that's what he does. And we agree with it conceptually. But when I tell you that you just take the word humble and you move it to a person who's committed to growth, and that is about your growth, and that if you're not committed to growth and see the necessity for your growth, then you are by default not humble. You go, no, that's not what that means. That's not what that means. And God is literally saying, like, if you don't believe that you have room for growth, this is the power of that passage. God gives grace to the humble. But he does what? Does anybody know? He opposes the proud. Here's another way of saying it. If you don't think that you need to grow, then in some way, and let's not, I'm not gonna tell you exactly how God will oppose you. I don't know. Part of it is practical. The way that the world works is through the wisdom of God. And when we progress, then we have more success in our life. So there is a piece where if we just don't grow, then we're gonna just keep smacking our face up against a brick wall. Life isn't gonna be working, and that might just be God opposing you because you're not doing it God's way, you're doing it your way. But I'm not gonna stand up here and tell you that God doesn't at times, when he sees an arrogant heart that's moving in the wrong direction, that he doesn't literally dip his hand into the fabric of this earth and stop your movement. However he may do it. There's passages in the New Testament that say that God loves us so much that he disciplines us. Whom the Lord loves, he disciplines like a child. So what is discipline for a child or for someone who arrogantly continues to take steps of error in their life? It's someone who's prideful. They're not submitting. They're not learning. They're not growing. So they get disciplined. They get penalties. They get put in jail, whatever it is, like you get in trouble. This is the way that the world works. So we're people of growth. And so a couple of things about progress for you, because this is, I'm gonna take us to one of the most specific and important ways that every one of us have to progress, and how that type of humility will change our reality. But in terms of your growth, every one of us has to understand this basic, it's anthropological, it's developmental. All of us every one of us in this room live with a belief system from the past that no longer serves us. Every one of us has a belief system from the past that no longer serves where we are, right? Even if it was decent, there's parts of it you take, but you can't take everything you learned before you were 11 years old and think that all you learned there is all you need for the future. So there's a repertoire of beliefs that we have about the world, and most of our fundamental beliefs about life come before age 11. That's like, and they're core, they're in there. So some of them are great things that we move forward, but they morph into adulthood. Some of them, and for most of us, we have core beliefs from our home, from a bad experience, from an education that we got, from a relationship that we got, whatever, that were extremely negative. And it's been cemented in your mind. And it's either created fear or it's created an oversense of arrogance, and insecurity that spawns in hyper confidence that's not actually gained, it can lead you forward into delusion, right? You were given a reality that's just not true, so you're walking around delusional. It can move you forward into, you watched a relationship between mom and dad, you watched a relationship between grandma and whoever, whatever, and now you're bringing that into your relationships, and you're going, well, this is how I saw it, but it's not functional in my life today. And so every one of us probably could look at our lives and go, there are things I learned before I was 11 that need to change, that need to go away, that need to improve. They need to evolve. I need some truth. I need some unpacking, something. In other words, there's room for growth. In other words, there's tons of room for growth. And so you're never gonna actually move towards the progress that God designed you for if you can't articulate what's driving you today, decide whether or not it fits the reality of God, and then move forward on a new frontier. You have to move forward in a new direction. You have to be intentional about your progress. There's tons of quotes about progress. Progress will not happen. I think it was George Bernard Shaw. He's a famous playwright, and he got into politics, and his critical writing on politics and the ideas in the world, really, he brought him into what he was designing in his art, and it made an impact. And I don't agree with what he concluded as he learned, but what he said is that if you don't change your mind about something, you'll never progress. So you have to change your mind. Something in your mind has to go, now I know what's driving me fundamentally, and I don't agree with that anymore. I'm gonna move forward. I'm doing something different. I don't like that. I need to figure that out. And you make the commitment to find the new direction in your life. This is what, I know as I'm saying all this, you're going, oh gosh, that sounds overwhelming. Oh man, that's like, how do I do that? But I'm defining, every time I'm talking about any type of progress, humility. This is what humble people do. They look at their life and they go, well, I need to grow here, and I don't think right about that, and I don't think right about, this situation, and my goodness, my life, I keep bouncing up against the wall here. I got room for growth here. And we're not shocked by it. We just think, because our reality says, I'm a human, I'm made for progress. Sin and brokenness has made it even more necessary and more difficult. Of course I need to grow. Of course I need to grow. So your commitment to your personal growth and belief that you need it is probably the number one factor in your future success in life. Not that you're happy or whatever, that you kind of, hit the jackpot, but that you find yourself down a road that has meaning and purpose and is valuable to you. That you're glad you're on. That you wake up every day and you go, yeah, we're gonna keep going in this direction. The only way you'll ever get to that place, and God blesses it, and the world around goes, that's the path, man, you're on it, is if you make a commitment to personal growth. And at times, personal growth in January, it's like a massive spine adjustment, crack. Like something big gets shifted in you, and you may just have a whole new direction in your life. But as we make Christ our direction, he's the summit, who he is, becoming like him, we work our way up the mountain. And we make adjustments all the way, all the time. It's a constant belief of growth and change. One of the things that's such a problem, I think about sometimes the reality of the Christian worldview that we're given, is that we think that the Christian life is defined by prohibition. You may not know that you think that, but a lot of us really think that the Christian life is not about the path that God has laid out for us as much as it is about the places we're not allowed to go. And we think, okay, for me to be a good Christian, here are the list of 10 things I can't do, right? And even when we're teaching the narrative, in the book of Genesis, we focus on, we talk about God's creation and it's all great and we're made in the image of God. And then Genesis chapter 3, then the snake, then the apple, and then you fell short of the glory of God and now you're a sinner and you're gonna die. And all of that is true. But when we focus that is like, so basically, you see what they did? You see what, you read it before, you see what they did? They ate the apple. Don't do that. Be a good Christian. Then you walk through life going like, ooh, can't do that. Can't do that. Not allowed to do that. That's sinful. That's wrong. That's this. And then it can even become nuanced and convoluted where, it's like you can't have sex before you're married. And then suddenly all of sex is bad. It's like sex is wrong. All of it. Because you can't be an immoral. Prohibition, you can't be an immoral person. So then you go into a marriage and you're confused about sex because you're going, I thought that this was wrong. Because I grew up where they told me that this whole thing was just wrong and evil and this. They don't tell you like the beauty that before all of that, before the fall, God's like, be fruitful and multiply. You do the translation. That's how people multiply. It's part of the design. It's not all prohibition. What God did when he created humans is he gave them a tremendous adventure to go on. A direction, not just prohibition. Progress, growth, go over there, aim over there. And so we don't spend enough time going, when we were made, God said, you have a purpose. Take the world, make it great, be fruitful and multiply, rule with me, rule over the animals, subdue the earth, put the kibosh on it, like bring it into beauty, take the garden, build it into a city, put structure and order around everything that's chaotic, live your life every day working and building something that matters, something that moves everything forward. Take kids' lives and make them, help them grow, just whatever it is, anything. Go forward. We live in a world that says, here's what you're not allowed to do sometimes. We have adventure versus injunction. We're certainly not supposed to do those things, right? I mean, Genesis chapter 3, I'm not throwing it out. I'm keeping it in and adding the first two before it. We have to think that life is more about playing your role than just following rules. It's more about your role. And God lays out your role, and then he says, go down this path. Progress continually in the direction of your role. Don't just try to not do the things you're not supposed to do. Build something. You see, when you're focused on climbing the mountain of God's purpose in our life, whatever that is, build your family, do something every day that brings life and goodness into the world. Worship God and with your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength. Love him, thank him, work for him every day. Love your family. You're just going. You're going. You don't really, you're captivated by the adventure. You're captivated by the summit, man. I want to be like Christ. Instead of focusing all the time on the apple. You ever been driving by a car wreck and you can't not look at it? And then you go like this and slam on the brakes and almost hit the person in front of you because you were staring at the wreck? You see, what we behold, we become. If you spend all your time looking at the negative things, you kind of become negative. If you spend all your time focused on what you're not supposed to do, you kind of do it. What are we supposed to do? Probably the number one area where progress is it's everything, is to see other people the same way. So everything that I just described, now we have to apply it to everyone else around us. And this is, like I said last week, where the magic happens. Once we believe that we're people of progress and that we're growing, it's a lot easier for us to look at the people around us and go, yeah, they're gonna grow. they're gonna grow. Or they can grow, let's say it that way. They may not choose to, but they can. They have the potential to. Maybe they don't, and I'm not saying you should just put up with whatever they do. I'm saying that your perspective of them changes. They have room for growth. Let's see what can happen. I mean, when you start to see people around you as people of progress, you just become a different person. You become patient. What's a patient person? He's a humble person, right? See, humility, again, not just one thing. It's a whole bunch of things that look like Christ. Humble people see others as people of progress. Genuine humility will set you up to win relationally. So that's not just how you see people. It's if you are progressing in your life every day. Sorry, I said progressing. If you are actually growing in your life, you personally, you see, what most of us do is we do what happened in the garden. You see what the first human interaction is around brokenness? That's what you read before I came out. What most of us do is as soon as we do something wrong, what do? We blame it on someone else. It's your fault. The inkling of sin is to say, I'm fine. I'm good. You need to grow. You know, God comes along and what happened? The woman. That woman. This is the scary part, is that he doesn't just blame the woman. He blames God for the woman. He says, that you gave me. God's like, bro, can we reset the reality here? You see, first of all, prohibition, right? This is what we're not allowed to do. They're focused on that. They get caught up in that. They get swooned into the one thing, because we don't want to be under God and we don't want to progress and we can be God and not progress and not submit to anybody. So we'll focus on the one thing we can't do because that makes us feel we have a sense of power that makes us like God when actually it kills us. And then when we do something wrong, because we didn't decide to submit to God, because we weren't committed to progress, because we weren't focused on the goal that he put in front of him, it's not even our fault. It's your fault. This is a game changer for, let's put it this way, your most important relationship. If anybody is in a marriage relationship, I mean, literally, the key to relationships, progress is the key to a relationship. It's the key. You see, when you get married, you say a bunch of things that you hope will be true. And you believe you're committed to them, and then you find out they're not true. And you go, this is really hard. And this, I can't believe this. I said I would do it. I can't, it's hard. I can't even, this. And immediately we start to think, if they were better, if they were different, if they would stop, if they would start, if they would say this, if they would not chew that close to my ear, right? It's just them. It's just always them. You know, I learned this stuff because I'm so stinking bad at it. And the one thing I'll pat myself on the back for is I believed that I was culpable for any conflict in my relationship with Katie. That it wasn't just her. I think probably still mainly her. No, it was, I'm joking. It was like, I believed enough. I gotta, there's something in me that I'm bitter, you blame, all of that. I gotta grow. In therapy, in one of my sessions, my counselor, who's this awesome woman, she's like 74. She's been seeing patients for 47 years and been married for almost all of that. And she said, I think what keeps people in relationships is when we see the other person grow. That's from 40 years of sitting with married couples, with just people in work relationships. You see, when we watch someone, even that we have intimate connection with and then therefore conflict with, when we see them committed to personal growth, we keep moving. We keep moving. When someone digs in their heels, you know what I've seen in marriage relationships so often is someone is so committed to growth, and they're just like, I'm praying, I went to this meeting, I went to this counseling, I stopped this thing, I'm reading, I'm praying, and then the other person, they won't go to therapy. They won't go talk about it. They won't talk to a friend about it. They won't do anything. That's when I know it's the beginning of the end. Because what makes a relationship work is when both the parties that need to progress in order for the relationship to work actually progress. And it gets better. And you're committed, and they're committed, and a humble person does not ever believe the lie that the only reason it's not working is them, those people. They believe, I'm gonna grow. So if you're out there and you're thinking about getting married one day, look for someone who believes in personal growth. Not someone who fakes it, but they believe it. Like they know, like they're sober, man, like smart. I'm gonna give you all that I have, and all that I have is not enough today, but I'm gonna keep growing, and it's gonna grow. And I'm gonna keep growing, and I'm gonna keep getting better. And I'm gonna love you with all that I have today, but all that I have today is not enough. So I'm gonna keep gaining more so that I can give more. I'm gonna become better so that we can become everything that we say we wanna become. Because every person in here that's in any serious relationship knows that if you are stuck in what you had the day you were married for the rest of your life, you don't have what you need for it to be successful. And that is true of every single part of our lives. Your job, your parenting, your every part is I've gotta grow. One of the most fundamental pieces of the way humility manifests in our lives when we start to see people as people of growth is we become people of forgiveness. See what happens when we have the attitude that someone is on a journey and they're growing, and then when we see them improving, how much easier is it to forgive someone who missteps and hurts you, whatever, if you know like the whole time they're trying, and they come back and they go, oh, I screwed this up. Like I'm trying, and I did it again. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I know I hurt you. I know I did, and I don't want to. I did it. I'm growing, and they go, I know you're growing. You're growing. I see it. I see your growth. Thank you. I forgive you. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Martin Luther King Jr., he said forgiveness is not an occasional act, it's a constant attitude. It's just an attitude of growth and progression and desire for adventure and growth and love. The irony, though, is that however, the more we progress, when our relationships truly develop because we're committed to growth, the less forgiveness people will need. You won't need to, So it's a very, very important reality to grab onto now. It's like by the time you're able to forgive, you won't maybe need to as much. So when you're wise early, your relationships grow deeper and stronger. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think of a relationship right now or a situation that has conflict or stress. Just think of one right now. Just think of one thing where there's some conflict and some stress. Could be a marriage. It's very easy to talk about that. We have all kinds of connection in our life, our friends, best friends, family members, work. I want you to think about where there's some relationship conflict and stress. So pick one, okay? Not if you've picked one, okay? And I want you to ask yourself this question, just ask yourself this, what role do I play in the conflict? And I want you to just take a moment. Don't think about them. Think about you. What role do you play in that? Now, again, all conflict and sometimes we come in contact with some dangerous people, and we come in contact with some people who need severe, help and maybe growth that's outside of our ability to affect. And so I understand that, that sometimes we get in relationships where there's a party that is so unhealthy and it's so bad that it really isn't your fault. But put a pin in that. What role do you play in this conflict, in this relationship that you have that's continuing to grow and that you have and that you care about, that you want to grow? And I just want you to just ask yourself this one question. What is one way you could grow as an individual that would improve it? This is a great exercise. What's one way that you can improve? That when you bring that improvement to the relationship will grow. Could be anything, right? Your answer is going to be something like Christ. If I need to listen more. That's fine. I want you to write it down. I need to listen more. I need to keep my mouth shut. I need to walk away for a day. I need to get up earlier in the morning, and I need to get ready 10 minutes sooner. Whatever, you just start to name, just some way, look at the conflict. It can be as little as, my wife and I had a conflict the other day about me spilling, I put this branched chain amino acids in my drink, and it gets crap all over the counter. And she said it bothers her. And I didn't respond well. You guys, are you with me here? Like, we're not this is every moment of our lives. This is your real attitude, your response, the way we talk, our disposition towards ourselves. What is it? What is it a way that it's like you could grow better? And you could bring a different reality. It's like probably, I was tired. I was having my coffee. She said it at the wrong time, but that doesn't matter. Who cares? Whenever she says something that makes me want to just, spit back a little thing, just take a deep breath and take a sip of coffee. And then say, yes, dear. Isn't that so true? The man who, I've told this story before, the man who married my wife and I married us on his 51st wedding anniversary. That was 20 years ago. And he said he wanted on his epitaph the 6 most important words that a man will ever utter. Yes, dear, yes, dear, yes, dear. What is it, right? This is in every area. And let's take a minute and we'll pray. And we'll go and we'll try to walk more humbly. Father, thank you so much for the scriptures, the word of God, the reality, the truth about life. Help us all as we come before you today and we offer you our praise, and we offer you adoration and worship. Help us not to allow the disconnect between how we live and what we think and our personal growth and actually worshiping you every day. Help us to see the connectedness of what it means to be a Christian, that it matters, like right after I say amen, like on the way to the bathroom, like how we text and communicate for the next hour after church, what we do next, how we interact, the talk in the car, the plan for the week, the discussion, the Monday morning work discussion, the conflict, the decision that has to be made for work, the direction with the kids, how we handle kids, what we say to kids, all of it, God, it's all part of what you have for us, is to be humble and grow. Lord, help us as parents to add, what a great question. How could I be a better leader and lover of my children? What do they need from me? How could I improve that would improve my relationship with my daughter or my son? God, thank you so much for your wisdom and insight and help in this life that we live. We love you and worship you in Jesus' name. Amen. Love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really glad that you did. If you're new or this is your first time watching, we want to hear from you. We want to connect with you and see what you're going through and how we can pray for you. So if that's the case, text the number on your screen, text hi, and we'll reach out to you. We'll see you guys soon.